Avowed director Meltdown says haters thickos as ex-Obsidian boss and Elon Musk push for lawsuit. Well, that's insane. From Legacy Killa HD.
2025 is set to be a massive month for the video game industry. It's been a while since we had so many releases all coming around the same span of time, but that is set to be the case in February, and that became even more stacked just recently with Assassin's Creed Shadows being delayed to February 2025. But as it stands right now, assuming there is no more delays with any of these releases, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is set to come February 11th, Civ 7th as well on February 11th, Assassin's Creed Shadows just a couple of days later on February 14th, Avowed a couple of days later on February 18th, then Monster Hunter Wilds on February 27th, Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, February 27th as well. So many of these games definitely need to win over players, especially because there's going to be numerous good options available, assuming all of these games, are...
I heard that Monster Hunter Wilds has a little bit of some woke stuff, and I ain't gonna be playing it. I'm done playing games like that. Just a little bit, even just a little bit of woke stuff. Not doing it anymore. It's got to be completely out. We need normal games again, or I'm not doing it.
Are met to critical acclaim or positive reviews. So, winning over players is very important, but some of these games have already been mired in controversy, notably Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's been just months of that, and it seems like there's going to be no slowdown with the controversy with that game in the lead up to its release. But another game has now been mired in just that, controversy, and that is Avowed. And this game has been through what can only be described as a strange development. We obviously got a teaser trailer a couple of years.
It got the Dragon Age treatment is what happened.
Years ago, it really appeared to be that it was going to have a massive scope and scale, something that we haven't seen from Obsidian Entertainment in years, since maybe even the Fallout New Vegas days. And then there was revelations that happened the last couple of years that the game was rebooted and it changed directors, all red flags and pointing to a game in development chaos. Then earlier this year, we saw some previews about some of the recent gameplay that, again, just turned out to be very negative. Like this Forbes article points it out, this was January. Something seemed very off about Xbox's Avowed gameplay footage, and they pointed out something was just off about the whole presentation and how the gameplay looked. In my initial first reaction take, I said that it looked like a VR game. While the stylized color palette looks neat, combat itself in the demonstration looked extremely stiff. So that has been the assessment for a while with this project, like low expectations, I guess you could say, but that has changed a little bit as of late, in which I think a lot of people have become a little bit more positive about this experience and thinking that maybe Obsidian is going to deliver a really fun and grand
Oh boy, has it heated up recently in the past couple days. Okay, he's gonna get into it.
Experience. Maybe something that's a little bit lower in scale and scope than, say, Skyrim or such, that I think a lot of us initially thought that this project was aiming for. And this Skyrim comparison is not coming out of the middle of nowhere. This is something that Obsidian Entertainment themselves admitted was the original aim for this experience. This is a PC Gamer article that came about last year in which they said exclusive Avowed started as Obsidian Skyrim, but evolved to focus on depth over breadth, where Obsidian really shines, which feels like a little bit of cope in many ways, in which
they're saying to compare it to Outer Worlds. So I didn't really like Outer Worlds that much, to be honest. People were trying to compare it to Fallout New Vegas, and it really was like not. If Fallout New Vegas is a 9 out of 10, Outer Worlds was like a 7 out of 10. I mean, it was on its way there, but didn't quite live up to it.
It's them just saying like, no, this game's still going to be a really fun and great experience, even though we took back the scope a little bit. And this is what Fergus Urquhart, the company's CEO, said at the time. Originally, we were pitching, in essence, our Skyrim. The feeling then was that Obsidian were better served not following Bethesda's example of a grand open world, but instead staying true to what an Obsidian game should be. That's when we backed up and said again, what are we good at? What's our lane? And with, that revelation from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg saying that there was reboots and a change in director, it would make sense that they just had problems putting this game together and figuring out its identity. But he went on to also say that we could go off and create an 8-kilometer by 8-kilometer open world and then deal with all the consequences of that, because that makes it a different style game. But we want to tell more confined stories that the player can experience with their companions and then move from part of the world to part of the world. And like I said, in the end, that's us. And that is pretty much what Avowed has turned out to be. And it has been met to, just recently, a ton of previews from gaming outlets that were overwhelmingly positive. But it's notable, these are just previews. These aren't reviews of the actual game experience. And I've already stated my...
Yeah, and like we saw previews for Dragon Age and Concord, you know, they were getting hyped up really, really hard. And this one's not really getting hyped up even that much. So, like, I don't see this one being, like, even in the top 20 best of next year.
Issues with previews and access
media. It's probably going to be a failure. It's probably going to flop, and it's probably going to be broken and boring, and have a bunch of woke stuff that nobody's going to want to play it
in this gaming industry. But I will say from some of the reviewers that I really do follow, like the Mr. Matty Plays, Skill Up, and a couple of other outlets, a lot of them were positive about this experience, so it does make me feel a little bit optimistic about it. And I am one of the, I guess, few that really did not hate the Outer World, so I'm optimistic about this experience. That has been how I've been feeling about it, and I was disappointed with the news that it was being delayed to February. And I think the reason why they did that was because they didn't want to just have Indiana Jones and Avowed all stacked up at once. And I think
if it's got the woke stuff in it, I will get it via unconventional means and download a mod to get rid of all the woke stuff. That's what's going to happen. That'd be the only way I'd play it.
Xbox head Phil Spencer pretty much said as much. But there has been some news as of late which has been a little bit concerning. It really just shows that they don't necessarily care. Microsoft, they're trying to maximize profit where they can.
No, they're
because
not.
Avowed's $90 version will let you play the game 5 days early. This is the type of stuff that I just hate about the video game industry, locking stuff like this behind premium editions of a game. But every publisher is doing it, and I just hate that this has become normalized. But
the only reason they're doing it is because it's become normalized. It's become the normal thing to do. And if it's the normal thing to do to try and gouge people for money, then that's what they're going to do just because it's normal. They're going to do whatever's normal. But they aren't actually trying to make money off of this game. Microsoft is, but I don't think Obsidian is. I think these people are just trying to push forward an agenda. They want to make the thing theirs and for their people. And that's it. Even though that's not what it started as, and that's probably why they got a new director.
Yes, in recent days, Avowed has been mired in tons of controversy. Some of that has to do with the character design. This has been a point that a lot of people have been bringing up with many different releases, especially with Western games. And yeah, some of the character designs not looking all that great, but I don't really think that Obsidian Entertainment's characters have ever looked like, you know, rather sexy or anything along those lines. So this isn't necessarily out of the norms with this company, but I do find it rather interesting that Microsoft does have a page which was dedicated saying that it cautioned developers to avoid curvy female characters. And you almost have to think, does Microsoft even have any curvy female characters or any? Not really. I mean, Cortana, kinda, but they've changed that character design drastically over the last number of years to be more PG rather than what it used to be. And yeah, at the time, this was on their website. Product inclusion action, help customers feel seen. Are you reinforcing any negative gender stereotypes? Are you unnecessarily introducing gender and gender barriers into your coder design? Are you creating playable female characters that are equal in skill and ability to their male peers? Are your female characters equipped with clothing and armor that fits their tasks? And again, it's just all these games like Bethesda.
Gotta be equal skills and abilities. They've got to be equal. You can't have different ones that are unequal, that do different things. No, none of that. Can't have interesting characters. Interesting characters might offend somebody. We can't offend somebody because we got to sell this to everybody. If somebody's offended, they're not going to buy it and we can't sell it to them. But you've offended people like me. So
they're all aiming for maturity, but it does seem like they hold back in some areas, and it's just rather interesting in my opinion. I know some people will say, no, that's absurd, but I think there is enough of a track record with Microsoft releases to be like, yeah, that is interesting when you look at some of the Eastern releases where they really put an emphasis on sexiness with female character design, but the West, you don't see that as much. As
all of the male characters are feminized
as of the last couple of years, and a lot of that is because of the controversy with sexy character design, which isn't something that's necessarily associated with male characters, because you'll have six-pack abs, unrealistic bodies.
That's kind of interesting.
But anyway, that is something that
that's kind of an interesting character design. I will give them that. Give them this one.
Has been on a lot of people's minds, and it's been heavily debated. But the real controversy of facing Avowed is actually to do with these remarks coming from the game's art director, Matt Hansen. And he responded to a tweet that was put on X by Elon Musk in regards to Avowed having pronouns. And here's the thing with pronouns in a game. This is something that a lot of publishers are starting to do. And yes, it garners a little bit of ire from a lot of people in the gaming industry.
I ain't doing it. And if you got pronouns in your game like that, I ain't doing it. No thanks. Absolutely not.
Industry or a lot of the gaming community, but most of the time, if you have a really fun experience, it can be ignored. And I think that's what would have happened here if this art director hadn't gone on an absolute meltdown in regards to Elon Musk remarking on this, because yes, the tech billionaire responded to this saying having pronouns in a fantasy video game is utterly unacceptable.
Having pronouns in any kind of video game at this point is unacceptable. We're moving on from it. These game companies are going the way of LJN, if anybody knows that reference.
And this art director responded saying, sickos.jpg, I wanted so badly to make him mad with my game, and I cannot believe it actually happened. Just wait until you see the default, you sad little... Yeah, so that was his assessment going after Elon Musk, and there comes as no surprise people have been digging into Matt Hansen's history. He's a very progressive individual with very progressive views, some of them controversially. But he did go on in this thread also saying, again, this is on Blue Sky, he said, it's on...
Don't hire people who have overly, who are way too into politics, you know? If they're making video games, they should be talking about video games, not politics. Don't hire people who, all they do is talk about politics and all they're into is politics. Because then they're going to turn your franchise into their politics. Because they're trying to push an agenda.
Honestly, deeply surreal to have the world's richest, shittiest boy whine about something I am making. I am quite frankly giddy. I cannot think of a single person in the world I would rather irritate. Anyway, Avowed comes out February 18th next year. Give it a whirl if you ain't afeared of the woke my mind virus. This MFR said woke my mind virus, shaking my head. And the thing is, what this Avowed developer just did was...
I think he was intoxicated. I think he was under the influence when he wrote that.
Slap every single individual on his team in the face with doing this, having a meltdown that has now put this game under a microscope. But now Avowed is right there in the culture wars, and you can say what you want about the original tweets of Elon Musk and Grumps, who is a former developer at Blizzard Entertainment, saying that they instigated, they were looking for bait, looking for somebody like Matt Hansen to take it. He did exactly what they wanted, and now this game is enemy number one for a lot of people online. And it's not like Hansen has gone back on any of this. He has only doubled down in the hour since, which I find, honestly, it's insane in my opinion, especially for a product that has so much competition in February, and I guess Hansen just doesn't care at all. I mean, it's not like this is...
I'm probably gonna play Fallout. I'll probably play Fallout New Vegas when this comes out. Maybe I'll play Oblivion, because Oblivion's just gonna be a better game.
Just a random developer. He's a director on this project. He leads aspects of Avowed, and just having this perspective is truly insane in my opinion. But in the follow-up tweet, he responded to somebody saying, I'm just a fan, but we're all doing our best for our family, country, God, and coach. And he responded saying, with all sincerity, there's no such thing as just a fan. Y'all are the whole reason for making this stuff, and it's why we do everything we can to make the game as inclusive as possible. Pissing off the chuds is just a side benefit, which you can double down, but all this just puts everything that you're doing, everybody on your team under a microscope, and they're all going to be attacked. So I just find this so dumb and so stupid in so many regards. And yeah, you're going to see, I'm sure many of you are going to be commenting that I'm not buying Avowed now. And I guess Matt Hansen's A-okay with that, but I don't know if the executives at Microsoft...
I legit was interested and thought this was going to be cool. But, like, after the pronoun stuff, and then after the guy owning the chuds, like, now I'm just going to farm it for content.
We're feeling the same way, because look, this industry has an ideological bias. I've talked about it extensively in videos for years, more recently in a couple of videos I just uploaded the last couple of weeks, but Hansen definitely just is a great example of what I've been talking about. And it does go further. He's been going after Elon Musk for a while, and apparently this is a tweet or a Blue Sky post in March 30th 2024, in which he said, "Oh Elon, you sweet summer child, this will only embolden me, you sad sack of that." And this is in regards to a tweet that Elon Musk had put out saying it should not be acceptable for any company in the gaming industry to be racist and sexist against white guys, which I don't know how you respond with that, certainly, that take by Matt Hansen, but... And there appears to be many more posts like this coming from Hansen, the art director at Obsidian Entertainment, in which he seemingly endorses discriminatory hiring practices at Obsidian, which, again...
Man, 2025 is going to be a rough year for these people. It's going to be a really rough year. If 2024 is a sign of things to come, I almost feel sorry for them if they weren't insane and evil.
This could lead to investigations and lawsuits against Obsidian, something that a former Obsidian co-founder hinted at, and a couple tweets we're going to get to a second. But Hansen wrote this, I guess, a while ago on Twitter. He said, "Reminder to black artists out there who are looking for portfolio reviews or job advice, my DMs are open and you will always have my priority. We got too many crusty white dudes in this field. Please let me help you replace me one day. I want to go back to living in the woods."
Does this not violate the Civil Rights Act? Yeah, it does. 100%. So, like, they're gonna get sued. This is gonna be bad.
And then Josh Sawyer, the game director of Fallout New Vegas, more recently Pentiment, who is one of the lead developers at Obsidian Entertainment, seemingly endorsed this perspective by retweeting it. And again, this all just sounds like discriminatory hiring practices in which they just don't want white dudes on their team because they want to be as inclusive as possible. And look, this is nothing new. We've heard similar perspectives coming from many individuals in the video game industry that just didn't get any response from any outlets or any games coverage. This is a big story.
I'm cool with it, actually. I'm actually cool with this decision that they've made, because that means that they're not going to hire good people to make their games. They're only going to hire people that think like them, and these people don't know how to make good games. As you can see, they all keep failing. So I'm seeing this one as going to be it's going to be mid. It's not going to fail like Star Wars Outlaws and Concord and Ubisoft games, whatever. It's probably going to do better than Assassin's Creed, but it's going to be mid and forgotten about. The only reason it's even going to do all right is because it's going to be on Game Pass and people are going to play it for like the first week to check it out, and here and there people are going to pick it up just because they haven't heard the drama and don't know what this game is. Probably what's going to happen, and it's going to be boring. It's going to be a straight up 6 out of 10. Like Dragon Age, the Veilguard.
Earlier this year that a lot of gaming outlets didn't want to cover, which was a Marvel's Black Panther game dev faces backlash after admitting to not hiring white developers. And it was more than that. They said, "I did that because I wanted to create a safe environment." Yes, they insinuated hiring white developers would lead to an unsafe environment. And I know the best way for an environment to be safe is to be around people who are just like me. I'm not saying white people are creating unsafe environments. I'm saying sometimes it's hard to work with white people because sometimes they think something is okay, but it's really a microaggression.
That sounds like your problem, and it sounds like you're racist against white people. Like, she's saying, "Oh, I don't like to be around white people because white people are racist." Like, are you stupid? No. Well, yeah. Yeah, they are stupid. She is stupid. Also racist.
Electronic Arts never talked about this. Many gaming outlets didn't want to cover this because, again, it just doesn't fit their ideological bias that they have about their worldview, pretty much. Now, seemingly a former World of Warcraft developer also responded to these tweets from Matt Hansen. Hansen saying, "I will petition for this on every game I make," with pronouns, I suppose. And then this WoW former employee saying, "Pronoun selector, independent of body type, was something I tried to push for before leaving WoW. At any rate, I think it should essentially be table stakes for new character creation systems being made now." And he said 100%, which I disagree with in my opinion. I understand, it's not like the biggest of issues with character creators in my opinion, but I will say it's rather interesting that Obsidian Entertainment really went out of their way to hide this from view. If you look at a lot of the preview coverage, they didn't allow any of these previewers to look at the character creator or show it off, and I think it is because of that. I think Obsidian Entertainment's leadership knew that pronoun, it being found, would be something that would be mired in controversy. I just don't think that they expected that one of their lead developers on the project would have an absolute meltdown over it. But yeah, in regards to these discriminatory hiring practices that have come to light, Elon Musk blasted this. He said, Satya Nadella, this is illegal. And then another response tweet, he said, he is confessing to illegal behavior won't end well for him. And then we had Chris Avellone, the Obsidian co-founder, lead developer on the DLCs for Fallout New Vegas. He was also a major developer on that game, the base game. He also worked on Alpha Protocol, Star Wars KOTOR 2, and many, many other experiences over the years. Avellone responded to this saying, "Based on recent news, if you were rejected from an art position at Obsidian in the past few years, call a lawyer. Discrimination in hiring, especially for a Microsoft studio, can ensure you don't need to apply for a job ever again. And it shouldn't cost you a cent to initiate legal action. The lawyers will know what the case is worth, and they'll do the heavy lifting. This has nothing to do with my personal politics, but I believe strongly that hiring discrimination for any reason isn't something the industry should tolerate. I hope you agree." And obviously, Avellone had a massive falling out with Obsidian years ago, but this was a key figure at Obsidian for a very long time, and hearing him, blast this out is just...
I have a special place in my heart. I have a soft spot for people who once worked on games like New Vegas and have moved on, and they're on my side with these opinions and issues.
Rather notable. It has 22,000 likes. It's only growing, and this is a massive controversy that I doubt Obsidian Entertainment at all is going to be talking about. So far, indication has been that they're just blocking people on their Twitter page, which makes sense. That's all they're going to do. They're going to ignore this. Microsoft probably as well. That's what this video game industry does, and many of these gaming outlets, the Polygons, Kotakus, IGNs, they're not at all going to cover.
Why does her body look like a dude? I like the cool thing going on with the head, but what's with that body?
This controversy at all, because it doesn't fit their personal ideology.
And her eyes are like, she looks like she's insane, or like she's got shell shock from battle.
Logical biases, their politics pretty much. But somebody did call out Avellone for this tweet. They said, please stop being stupid. A post on an individual account by a guy who isn't even in charge of hiring isn't grounds for legal action. Yes, what that guy is saying is stupid, doesn't mean you have to be stupid too. And
well, I mean, if they have those hiring practices, if that is true, if he just accidentally spilled the beans, then some legal action is true to be sought.
Avellone hit back saying any professional art director is 100% plus involved in hiring art applicants. Hiring managers at a studio are not the ones who make the call. They're the ones who organize the interview process, not decide who to interview and accept. The post above is not an insult, not to call you stupid, but simply to inform. And then he followed up saying, lawyers will absolutely work for free if the end settlement is high enough, which is absolutely true, and they get a percentage. Microsoft is an incredibly rich monopoly, and them agreeing to a settlement is standard practice versus ongoing bad press for one of their studios. In a few more follow-up tweets, Chris Avellone responded to somebody saying, does being rejected automatically make it discrimination? Avellone saying no, but based on recent events, there's a case to be made even if the rejection may have been valid. That validity needs to be examined by the courts because of the recent announcements, and Obsidian would need to show proof of the validity of the rejection. And he also again pointed out the fact that he's no longer a part of Obsidian Entertainment, and he didn't work on Avowed, and he has no idea what's going on or the inner workings at Obsidian right now. Somebody did say, I honestly never thought that you would call this out, and he said, I had an experience with a BioWare producer who showcased the full extent of their hiring practices, and it's a story for another day, but definitely was cause for a lawsuit.
And I guarantee you that they're running everything similar to BioWare. All these game companies are run by the same types of people who want the same types of things done, who got these same types of microtransaction bullcrap that they got to push and everything. It's all the same people, and they run the companies the exact same way. Everything that's got the DEI, we got to have diversity, and then everything's the same. Because it's all a money-making machine, bureaucracy. We got to manipulate as many people as possible.
Now, what Avowed is saying here definitely seems to be insinuating that, yeah, this is an industry-wide problem and not exclusive to Obsidian, which, based on some of the other examples I mentioned earlier in this video, not really a big surprise. Another tweet, do you think that art director's statement indicates a larger negative culture at the studio? And Avowed takes a shot at his former colleague Josh Sawyer by pointing out, was it liked, shared, or retweeted by anyone at the studio, especially an executive or another director? Yeah, Josh Sawyer, the director of Fallout New Vegas, and most recently Pentiment. Somebody points out that Pillars 1 and 2 were classics. Avowed looks like shovelware, and Avowed said even the director of P1 and P2 won't work on Avowed apparently. And the last tweet I'll bring up from Avowed, who's been very outspoken on this situation, somebody criticized saying, yeah, and for Chris to make that jump is wild. I expect it from Grums and the like, but Chris, And Avowed hits back saying, yes, it's only because I know what's in the email chains at Obsidian to say nothing at what the devs discuss in hallways. It's not a wild jump. It's more like shining a light and standing back. So if it is not clear, my opinion on Avowed has been more positive as of late, but I also understand that this Obsidian Entertainment isn't the same studio that made Fallout New Vegas a decade plus ago. That's why when we talk...
None of these companies that made these games that we used to love are the same. They've gone through like 2-3 different iterations of these companies. Like Ubisoft, when they made Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 and Brotherhood, Revelations, none of those people are around anymore. I mean, they're around, but in like spread out into different companies. And it's just sad that they keep these games going because they think that they're gonna keep making money. Doesn't matter if they're good. Doesn't matter if they're good. The fans will still buy it because they're gonna be fans even if they don't like it. Well, if you start insulting them and offending them, this is just not the same anymore. They will stop buying. That's what killed game companies like LJN. And you know what's funny? Their logo was a rainbow.
Talk about Fallout New Vegas 2, a lot of people have been, pointing out that this just isn't the same studio. Chris Avellone, he is no longer at Obsidian, he left long ago. The main narrative director, designer on Fallout New Vegas also left. I believe they're working at Guerrilla Games or some other games as of late. So this studio has been through a lot of turmoil over the years. They almost went under before Microsoft purchased them, and still they have made some good experiences that I very much enjoy. And I do hope that Avowed turns out to be a grand experience, but what Matt Hansen did here was the worst thing that you could possibly do, and he has only doubled down since, which I just find truly insane. But look, the ideological bias in this video game industry, something I've been hitting home on for a long time, is something that Laura Fryer talked about recently in a video. She was a former executive producer on a lot of Microsoft properties, such as the Gears of War games back in the day. This is our Moby Games profile, and she recently uploaded a video that I wanted to talk about just briefly because I do think it is relevant to what we're talking about here, in which we have another developer attacking gamers for, I guess, just having different politics than them. And yeah, she worked on...
Oh, when will they learn? When they're broke, probably. When everyone's forgotten about them.
Executive producer on Gears of War 2. She also worked on some of the Warner Brothers properties, Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor. Some great games in my opinion. And she actually uploaded this video recently, The Games Industry Bubble. She talked about the relationship between games media and publishers and the problematic nature of that, as well as influencers. And then she went on to talk about some other things that, again, I just think it's really relevant to what we're talking about here.
But then, something changed. You see, when you're in a bubble or an echo chamber where no real feedback gets through, it's easy to make bad choices. It's easy to believe the friendly journalists when they tell you what a genius you are and how great your game is.
On the score, yeah, we do mock reviews for every game that we launch, and this is like double digits lower than we thought we would be.
You stop seeing what the gamers are actually playing. You stop understanding what they want. You stop listening because all you hear is how awesome you are.
And that's just been the nature of this video game industry for a while now, but it has become more abundant with, recent controversies we've been talking about the last couple of years.
Let's look at Dragon Age. It took over 6 years to make that game. And that is very expensive.
I think it's actually been about 10 years. They spent 10 years, obviously full production.
Actually, I think it's only been about 2 years. I think they worked on it for about 2 years because they kept resetting it and starting over. I think they started over again, and it took them 2 years to get to that point, using the scraps from the previous versions that they had.
Probably closer to 6, but they spent years, hundreds of millions on that project.
Even before you start talking about the marketing. This means you're going to have to sell a lot of copies, and that means you're going to have to appeal to as many people as possible.
Yes, and what do you think that Matt Hansen post, the Avowed art director, just did? Turned off many, many individuals. But hey, I mean, if you are in the Microsoft pockets, you don't have to worry about game sales. Maybe he just doesn't care, and he thinks that because, the Obsidian Entertainment, they're owned by Microsoft, he doesn't have to worry about that. But hey, jobs layoffs still will happen. There are consequences when you do stupid shit like this.
Look, shipping a game is really hard, and I give these developers a lot of credit for getting it out the door. There's no question that some people like the game, and that's great. But it's looking like it won't be enough, and I have concerns this will lead to more layoffs. Also, as a gamer, I have no problem with game developers taking risks with their...
Have concerns that it'll lead to more layoffs. I am giddy about it. I am ecstatic. I hope it happens. I hope that the whole company just shuts down. Because I don't think they got the magic anymore. Because none of these companies have shown that they're able to actually bring that magic back. Except Capcom. But they're just remaking games pretty much. Even Resident Evil 8 Village, that was kind of a remake or like a spiritual successor to Resident Evil 4 before they did the remake of Resident Evil 4 outright. Which, fantastic. I love the Resident Evil games. All of them, even the bad ones. I love 6.
Content. Who doesn't love innovation? But that doesn't mean I'll buy your game. There are many games I like and many that I don't. This is true of movies too. And that's the beauty and the challenge of working in the games industry. Sometimes you will make something that you think is good and people don't love it. I was proud of every single game I shipped, but not all of them had commercial success, and it was frustrating. But I didn't blame the gamers for that. Instead, I tried to look back. I tried to self-reflect. What did we do well on this game?
And look, a lot of that self-reflection, especially with something like pronouns, it just comes down to the fact that a lot of these individuals will immediately reject that because it just goes against their perspective that inclusivity over everything. Even if majority of the gaming audience scoffs at something like a mechanic like pronouns in a game.
What could we have done better? Why didn't this work out? And as the leader of a studio or a game, I always looked at myself first. Gaming is entertainment. People aren't forced to buy your message or your game.
Yes.
Holding back user reviews for a few days only buys you a few days. Eventually, the truth comes out. Eventually, people notice that you aren't delivering fun games and they stop giving you money.
Everybody knows it's over! Everybody except you!
When people ask me why AAA games are in trouble, this is it. Because they're not reflecting on what they could do better. Instead, they're attacking the people that they want to sell their games to.
Exactly.
It is not a winning strategy.
We are not the people they want to sell their games to. They just wish that the people that they're marketing to would actually buy their games, but they don't because they're awful. And the people that they're pandering to just like to repost it on their social media. They don't actually play games.
Edgy.
And look, it's not like this is just something that's happened with Dragon Age. A lot of the controversy that happened with that game. It's also games like Concord, the talentless freaks remark that was made by an employee. All of this it contributes to a very negative image of the AAA games industry, especially this Western sphere in which we just keep on seeing this happen.
It reminds me of Plato's allegory of the cave. It's where people only see what is on the wall in front of them. They don't see that there is a fire behind them and puppets that are creating the images that they see on the wall. What they're seeing isn't real. And if only they would turn around and walk into the light, they would know the truth. They would be able to change. It's hard, but fortunately, they made the cave. They made the fake reality. They can turn around at any time. And I, for one, hope they do.
I respect that optimism, but I also realize that many of these individuals are so hardlined on their stances with their ideology that they're not going to at all even acknowledge the issues with their position and how unpopular their positions are. So a lot of these people are just unaccepting to this reality and do not at all want to even entertain change. So look, I think the vast majority of those watching and probably those who will consume or we're going to
they're just gonna have a bad time. They're gonna have a real bad time, man, because nobody's gonna be playing it. I'm not gonna be playing it. Asmongold will play it and make fun of you, and then people are gonna watch Asmongold play it and not buy it. And then you're gonna blame Asmongold. But really, who you should be blaming is yourselves. Like, come on, just make normal games. That's how you get everybody to play your games. Just make normal ass games. Try some new things. Don't do what everybody else is doing. Because you're not cool with doing DEI. Nobody cares.
Consume Avowed probably would come to the same conclusion that I just don't care about pronouns. Whatever, it's there, it's cringe. But if the game's fun, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And we'll see what happens with Avowed.
I, for one, don't have enough money and time to care about playing these games. So if they have the stuff in it, I'm done. I ain't doing it. I can go play Free Space 2. I can go play Resident Evil 1 HD Remaster. You know what I mean? I've got so many games that I can play. I still haven't played Dishonored. And I've had that game for years and years and years. I haven't played it. I haven't played BioShock 2 either. I mean, I've played the first one. I didn't beat it. I know it's great. I haven't played any of the Metro games. I've got such a backlog that I just do not care. I will play the games that I've already bought because I have too many. And if I really want to play your game, I'll do what I said earlier and I will acquire it unconventionally and mod the game to where it's got normal stuff in it. Take all the gay stuff out.